before you go taking hormones, so before you go taking hormones, let's say before you take hormones, there's, say, the 4 pillars that you want to investigate from a physiology standpoint. That if one or more of these things are messed up, then taking hormones might help your symptoms, but you're leaving these underlying causes. So one is going to be blood sugar dysfunction, needs to be addressed. Inflammation needs to be addressed. Liver issues needs to be addressed, and gut issues need to be addressed. Why blood sugar? Well, because insulin surges, if you don't handle your blood sugar well, if you're having insulin surges promote dysfunction in hormones. In a male, insulin surges promote increased function of an enzyme called aromatase, and aromatase is what converts testosterone to estrogen. So if you've got a guy who's insulin resistant and he's having low T symptoms, and you just go to a T clinic and you get testosterone, but that insulin resistance is driving increased conversion of testosterone to estrogen, the testosterone from the hormone clinic may drive that male female faster, because they're giving him testosterone, but his body's converting it to estrogen more inappropriately. So I took estrogen or testosterone and I don't feel any better, and I'm still gaining belly fat and man boobs, which is called gynecomastia, and I'm crying at Hallmark commercials and things like that. They didn't address the cause, so you need to address the insulin. Inflammation, if you're systemically inflamed, that's going to be a tiger, right? That's going to drive cortisol, epinephrine, the HPA axis. And when you're stressed, you suppress sex hormone function, because reproducing when a tiger's chasing you doesn't lead to survival, right? So sex hormones in the environment of chronic stress, chronic inflammation, are not a priority for survival. And that's what the stress response of our physiology is set up for, is to help you survive. So again, if you're high stressed and you go take testosterone, it might make you feel better in the short term, or estrogen in a female, whatever we're talking about, might make the symptoms better in the short term. But if you leave the tigers, you're going to need more and more of the hormone, and you're still not addressing the issue. And like we talked about earlier with the free paycheck scenario, if you're doing that for too long, you might not be able to eliminate the tiger and go back to normal hormone production. If it's liver, the liver is our major detox organ. So the liver, it takes 2 phases to eliminate hormones. Hormones, your estrogen, your testosterone, your progesterone, these are all fat soluble. These are all fat hormones. To get rid of them, we have to turn them into water. Okay. So for the liver to do that, it takes 2 steps. So you take estrogen, for example. Estradiol is a fat soluble hormone. The first step 1, phase 1, turns it into an intermediate. And then you need phase 2 to turn it into water soluble. And then you can excrete it out your urine, your feces, or your sweat. So if you have any issue with liver, phase 1 or phase 2 detoxification, this may not happen. Phase 1 is heavy on hydroxylation, and phase 2 is heavy on methylation. So if you have any issue with hydroxylation or methylation, which include various genes and various nutrients like B vitamins and things like that, then you may not clear hormones well, and you may have hormonal imbalance. And then the gut, if you have gut dysbiosis, or imbalance of good bugs or bad bugs, there's certain bugs that produce an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. And it's a big word, but why that's important is because if they produce that enzyme goes over here to the intermediate step, and it can take this phase 1 intermediate and turn it back into the parent. And so these intermediates sometimes are more toxic than the parent, than the estradiol. So if we go back to step 3, where if there's a liver issue and we have a buildup of the intermediates because of a methylation issue in phase 2, now we've got more intermediates building up, and that can increase cancer risk. That can increase inflammation and those things. Well, if we have a gut issue from bugs producing too much beta-glucuronidase, now we're taking estrogen, turning it into an intermediate, but this enzyme is turning it back into estrogen. So now a woman or a man could be estrogen dominant, not because they're producing too much estrogen, but because their gut is unhealthy. They've got bad bugs in there producing too much of this. Okay. So again, if you just take a hormone and don't look at all this stuff, you're at best creating a Band-Aid, and at worst, driving things much more off kilter.